My name is Karishma Kusurkar. So I was born in Pune in India. It's now turned back to being called Pune because its name had been changed by the British whenever they had taken over India. So it's changed back. I moved to Northern Ireland in 1996. My mum came here first. She came here in 1994, and then I followed her a couple of years later. I was living with my grandparents for the 2 years in between.
How old were you?
I was about 6.5 to 7 when I moved here.
And can you remember much about your life in India? You were quite young.
I remember mainly the 2 years that I stayed there when my mum was here, and I lived with my grandparents in Koregaon Park, which is this really leafy part of Pune, and it's a lovely area, and it's one of the only parts that are actually that leafy with so much vegetation and trees. They have a lot of banyan trees with a lot of roots and lots of insects and some snakes as well. But it's a really, really nice place. So I stayed with my grandparents there and it was lovely. So I have a lot of nice memories from my granddad's house. And actually that's my granddad and my grandmother. So I lived with them, and my aunt and uncle as well lived in the same house at that time, and now they're living in Canada. My granddad was called Jai Singh Rao and my aunt was Neela Aji. Or not my aunt, my grandmother, sorry, I don't know what I'm talking about. So my grandmother was Neela, and they both were living in Koregaon Park for quite a long time. My grandfather was in the army, and he was a brigadier in the army. So he actually had a lot of British friends whenever the British were based in India, and he also had a lot of Indian friends in the army, and they moved a lot around India with my mum and her sisters and her brother. So they've been living in quite a few different parts of India, and they settled in Pune then, and I was born in Pune, so we always stayed with them whenever they were in Pune.
Okay. Could you tell us a bit more about his career maybe in the army, or do you know much about it?
Yes, I mean, one of the most significant parts of his career in the army was whenever he was based in Goa, in Daman, and they fought a really important battle there, which has actually been commemorated as well very recently. And it was against the Portuguese because they had taken over that area of Goa, and actually it's a lot of Portuguese influence in Goa that can still be seen there. So he was part of that, as well as quite a few other significant like battles and also just general defence around India. And he was born in Kolhapur, which is not too far from Pune. Now it's connected a bit better, but it's more rural, and I say it's a town, but it's actually a really big town. It's got a lot of people. And his family were all from the agricultural sort of background, because there's a lot of people that work in agriculture around Kolhapur.
Okay.
So yeah.
He looks very distinguished in this photograph.
Yes, yeah. I think this picture is actually taken when he came to Belfast.
Okay.
And we'd gone to Jerry Coe, who's a photographer based off the Lisburn Road.
Okay.
And we wanted some nice pictures taken of my granddad, so he took some lovely pictures. And we were trying to get my granddad to smile, but he wouldn't smile very much in the pictures.
Can you remember much about moving? What was the journey like?
Well, I remember I didn't really want to move initially because like all of my family and my friends were all in India. But my mum sent me over some brochures of different schools in Belfast. So she gave me one for Methody, one for Cabin Hill, I think, and one for Victoria. And then I picked the school based on the best uniform. I picked Methody.
Of course.
Yeah. And then I came over, and we came over, I think, on Singapore Airlines. And I think they served noodles on the flight, and I thought this was amazing. And the air hostesses had these really beautiful, really elegant, not costumes, but outfits. And I think they still do. They're very, very stylish on Singapore Airlines. And then after that we kept travelling by Singapore and Emirates for a long time, but recently it's changed to Lufthansa and to other airlines, depending on whatever's the best value.
So even the journey on the plane was exciting then?
It was, the whole thing was exciting. I think I was staring out at the window for a lot of the journey.
Had you been on a plane before that, or had you travelled any great distances? Or?
I don't think I had been on a plane. I think that was
Okay.
the first time, I think. Yeah. I haven't been to a lot of different places in India. I've been to a few, and I hadn't been anywhere really far. I think I'd been to Madras. I think that was probably the furthest I'd been from Pune. I'd been to Delhi as well before. but yeah, I don't think I'd flown anywhere. We'd usually gone by train or by car.
Yeah.
I went to school at Fullerton House, but I had gone to school in India as well, in St. Mary's. So whenever people talk to me here and they say, "Oh, you know English very well," or "You speak English very well," it's like, well, I learned English in India
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
my school was an English medium school.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are English and Hindi and Marathi medium schools where you're taught in different languages. So I went to an English one where they taught Marathi and Hindi as second languages, but not as the primary one. And then over here I went to Fullerton House, and then I went to Methody for my grammar school or secondary school.
So you didn't find a language barrier too hard then when you first came over?
No, it wasn't bad, and actually I found that I found spelling very easy because in India they're very strict about spelling, and they used to like give you quite advanced spelling.
Yeah.
So whenever I came here, at that stage, people were still learning things from a couple of years before me in India. So I found spelling really easy. Like all of that sort of caught up in secondary school, and then that was about the same. But when I joined, I remember spelling being really easy.
And,
Yes.
and you coped with the accent, okay?
I think I did. Yeah, I don't remember ever having any problems. But yeah, I don't think I did. I didn't struggle with the accent.
So did you enjoy going to school?
I did. I enjoyed most of it. I loved primary school and had a fantastic teacher called Miss Small in P6 and P7, and she was a fantastic teacher, and she was really into art, and it's really, really inspirational for me.
Yeah.
And she always had these fantastic projects going on, and she was definitely the best teacher I had in primary school.
Overall, you've enjoyed living in Northern Ireland? You think it's opened up a lot of opportunities for you?
I think it actually has, yes. I didn't realise how much I would miss Northern Ireland until I moved to London.
Ah, right, okay.
And because you sort of take a place for granted, and especially Belfast. Belfast is so friendly. When you walk down the street, people actually talk to you and people actually smile at you. And in London, nobody has time for anyone else. Even your friends probably don't have time for you in London, because everyone sort of develops that hard edge and that sort of coldness that comes with a big city. But yeah, Belfast has been amazing, and I think it's also exciting because Belfast is almost like a blank canvas, because it's only just starting out, and there's so many exciting new creative things happening, as we were discussing earlier as well. There's so many new projects emerging, and there's lots of old buildings being transformed, and I think that there's so much that could be possible.
Do you love whenever you go back to India? What's the first thing that you can think of doing? Is it getting food? Is it, going and buying some clothes? Or...
I think it's all the shopping. It's definitely the shopping. Yeah, every time we go, we always seem to do a lot of shopping, and there's so many different places to shop. My aunt used to live in Delhi, and Delhi has a huge range of places to go to, but unfortunately it's become a little bit dangerous to go on your own. But she would drive us everywhere at that time, and we used to go to malls which would have more sort of high-end stores and things, and like you wouldn't buy very much there because it's really expensive. But I got this in a Manish Arora store. Beautiful. And now it's quite old, but I loved the print on it, and he's my favorite Indian designer. So he would have all his work in maybe some of the high-end designer malls, and especially in the suburbs of Delhi, there are quite a few of them coming up. And I think a lot of people feel safer to walk around them because they have security guards, and it's a bit easier to actually just browse in the shops. And then they have some older style shops in markets. So there's a place called Khan Market, and there's lots of like fabric shops. And actually one of the best experiences if you're going shopping in India is buying a sari. Because I haven't bought many saris. My mum would mainly buy saris, and my aunt. But whenever you go, there are these like mattresses that are covered in white sheets which you sit on, and then it's usually men that are selling the saris, but they'll open out as many saris as you want, drape them over their arms so you can see the fall of the sari, and it's quite an experience. And they'll get you chai, like the chai that we're having at the minute, but it'll be even richer and sweeter, and it like just a small cup, so you'll sit there and consider your purchase and what you want to get, and they have huge mirrors everywhere so you can see what they look like on you as well. So that's probably the best shopping experience if you're going to India. That's something that's very different to anywhere else.
Very good. And do you ever find it strange going back? Like, do you feel like you've adapted to Northern Irish life more now, or?
I think I have. I find some aspects frustrating and some aspects amazing. I think there's always a lot more going on in India. Like
Yeah.
Belfast can be quite quiet and you might not necessarily have something to do.
Yeah.
But in India, there's always something going on.
Mhm.
In India, there's always a lot going on. There's a lot of people and there's a lot of traffic.
Uh-huh.
So I find that quite difficult because I can't drive anywhere in India.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I always have to rely on somebody else to take me there.
Uh-huh.
And then people are really worried about letting me go on public transport as well.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, don't
Yeah.
do that, don't do that. And then I feel like it's almost like a nanny state then,
Yeah,
because
okay.
you're sort of, having to rely on people to get anywhere. I'd love to be able to just walk around and go there because there are lots of amazing places to visit. So that I find a bit frustrating, and I think it'd be difficult for me to move back then because of that sort of thing. I think it's much more liberal here and much more relaxed when it
Mhm.
comes to women especially,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
what you can wear and how you can act.
Mhm.
Because if you go out in public in India, people would be a lot more conscious about what you're wearing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not because they don't want to wear it, but how other people would react to it,
Mm.
or how men on the street might,
Okay.
react to it. Because there are people that catcall, there are people that, grab people, and
Okay.
yeah, so that's a bit frustrating because I think people should be allowed to wear whatever they want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Or
keep
Irish.
calling myself Northern Irish Indian.
Yeah.
So people think that that means that I'm maybe mixed race, but actually what I mean is that I'm also Northern Irish in a way, and Indian, because I've lived here for most of my life.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I've lived here for probably 4/5 of my life, so
Yeah.
it's a significant portion of my life.